This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Exators. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Методами образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Exators. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Exators.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
So there's this show called Hogan's Heroes. Americans might remember it, but I guess Europeans didn't see this because it's just so clearly about American prisoners of war that are trapped in a prisoner of war camp, probably in Czechoslovakia or Austria. It's somewhere maybe between Germany and Austria somewhere, and they're trapped and yet they constantly escape. They're always escaping. These Americans are always escaping. And it would be really embarrassing to the Gestapo and to the leader of this prisoner of war camp for that to happen to him, because he's supposed to be watching over these guys. So they constantly sneak back in, right? And so they're sneaking in and out of this prisoner of war camp, becoming kind of friendly with the German soldier, and it's kind of weirdly adorable and hilarious, but also it's saying that even when these guys think that they're so dramatic and ostensibly in charge of their situation, these American pranksters are always actually in charge, and they're just pretending to concede and to be submissive because they're so powerful. It doesn't even bruise their egos to be in this prison scenario. And also maybe beyond that America itself is a prison state. So there's nothing that fantastical about being in some sort of Third Reichian prisoner of war camp. That's just about daily life in America, which I always thought was a funny sitcom. And the producer went on to make The Godfather. So watch Hogan's Heroes.
Which I would assume is maybe more known in Europe, or maybe it's just too old. When was this created?
Hogan's Heroes or what?
Yes,
Hogan's Heroes is made in the 60s, I think, or is it late 60s, early 70s? Hogan's Heroes.
I guess my main question would be if you would show this to different war veterans from different sides, maybe also Japanese or whatever. I would wonder if they would find it funny.
From September 17th. What is wrong with me? How does this happen? What's even going on? The show's first airing date was September 17th. What is just blowing my mind. I'm sorry. You guys didn't even see that. I was just too stunned. I'm not kidding here. Look, the show started running from September 17th, 1965. I had no idea. This is the second September 17th.
59 years ago.
Yeah. But it was so good.
In Gregorian calendar.
Well, okay. I mean, also the guy let me find is it Werner Kemper? I think is the one. Basically one of the main guys is also and they're in Franconia, that's the idea. One of the main guys is from Mr. Limpet, which is pretty cool. So Mr. Limpet is a movie where a man who believes that man has evolved from sea animals wishes that after this World War II scenario happens, that some new life will evolve from the sea, and then maybe like he'll return as a. And he says, "I wish I were a fish," and he returns to life as a fish, and then he helps the Americans defeat the Third Reich with some weird sonar system, and by training underwater marine creatures as secret agents to work for the U.S. government to destroy U-boat submarines. Right? But this also has the same villains from Hogan's Heroes.
Okay, so of course this makes me think of Inglorious Bastards, which would probably be more like the maybe less interesting reference. The other thing, of course, is all the missing U-boats, at least all the missing German U-boats. So it almost sounds like, oh, we're gonna make up a nice fairy tale to cover up how actually we don't really exactly either know what happened with those, or there is some, secret parallel plot going on.
Abbott remembers the main line from this show, which is, "I see nothing, I hear nothing," which is like the joke, you see nothing and you hear nothing in Stalag 13. They tried to make Mr. Limpet again with Jim Carrey, which kind of freaks me out to know that they were going to do a CGI Mr. Limpet movie. Yeah. And I think this one was I think someone realized, like, wow, you're going to make the plot way too clear to people, and they're going to know what this is about. we got to cancel that project. They can't see the light of day. Well, okay.
I mean, sonar and underwater, it's definitely something to investigate.
Oh, we'll watch Mr. Limpet, the original Mr. Limpet. It's going to blow your mind. You're going to be like, how did they get away with it? And they're like, they destroyed Europe. They bombed Dresden to make this cartoon. That's what we'll say. So, Raphael, this is your website. You go to Comency.at, and you can find the links to the show. My day is just made by having these itineraries. That's so cool. We can look at all of the stuff that you've been thinking about. We're going to look at decoding the Goths. We're going to look at weather manipulation. We're going to talk about Antarctica. What's top G? By the way, is this
that's the part. That's the part we're gonna skip. I just wanted to reference it because I brought it up earlier, and it's just
you're still thinking about Andrew
get
Tate.
The shorthand.
You're sick.
I'm not.
You're sick,
I'm not still thinking about it. I was just never understood what's really going on with him, and what are the real.
Sorry.
I mean, that could be double interesting because apparently, as people can, and we can, scoop this up now. We don't have to talk about it later. If any of these reports and so on are correct, and some of those are referenced there from like seemingly independent individuals looking at the court cases and so on, well, big surprise, it looks really bad. I'm not sure if the tactics described there would work under the assumption that we have a free Martin, but it remains strange. And yeah, and what's actually the most interesting thing, that's the one thing I'm going to bring out, is that it could be that one of the reasons that he went so viral and made sure to be talking on every potential podcast, every, quote unquote alternative, maybe somewhat right-leaning influencer platform, whatever. I could now use all the funny names people use for those individuals. Like, what was it? I know I'm even forgetting the names, but people make up funny names for different influencers. But he's basically toured all of those and told them, oh, I want to say I'm so sad, no, but I'm such a victim, basically, of the Matrix. And if any of these allegations pan out to be correct, which from afar doesn't seem too unlikely, his house may come crashing down. But then, of course, all the individuals associated with him and propping him up within the last few years may have some explaining to do in terms of due diligence or whatever, which they apparently didn't care so much about. And of course, it's a crazy hypocrisy. I mean, the whole story is a hypocrisy anyways, but it just gets worse. But just anyone who wants to look into that, they can check out those particular links.
Yeah, basically,
because they like summarize his gain to his claim to fame, and also basically how he used, let's say, multi-level marketing, brainwashing, and again, main target group of teenagers, basically, to solicit a free army. And this is partially how he got to where he got. So,
it's the thing. He's so crazy, and some of this stuff is so nuts that it almost makes more sense that it's just a freaking psychological operation. But you know what? It's totally. There are people like this. They go to Las Vegas and they get trained in media marketing, and that does do something for you. So it could be more organic than people realize, I think. Still, doesn't need to be.
No, I mean, there's an organic part to it in terms of enlisting that army, but how you got them was through brainwashing, basically. And then
No,
there's
I just
many
mean
other
that.
factors.
I just mean that because because he's brainwashing people. Well, that's a way to put it. Because of neurolinguistic programming, you could say that, oh well, who knows how to do that? He must be part of some sort of a larger network. But realistically, it's not likely. It's more that he probably learned this from people that were teaching multi-level marketing techniques and psychological manipulation tactics, probably in 3-day courses. That's kind of what it comes off as. And then he's using that to benefit himself. I mean, a lot of people point to him and say, "Oh, his relationship with Michaela Peterson, does he have dirt on people? What is he doing to keep himself afloat? Why are people interacting with him?" I don't think it's really nearly as nefarious as people think. I mean, it's nefarious in the neurolinguistic programming sense. People are vulnerable to certain sorts of emotional exploits, right?
Yeah, I mean that much is for sure. But anyhow, people interested, they can look at this. These are like endless sagas, but they may reveal at least some small thing, which is speculated in one of those documentaries I linked, or one of those talks. Basically, the question, as always, unfortunately, how was their relationship to their parents? And is it possible, of course, that their highly dysfunctional behavior is not something that only started yesterday, but unfortunately has multi-generational roots, as too often. But, well, we talk about resets here, so big surprise. Everyone is traumatized to some extent. Hooray. and the greatest psychopaths, of course, they rise to the top. So, Andreas, I'm getting suspicious with your 129K subscribers.
I'm a pretty chill guy. I think you're gonna have to relax. If it grows a little faster, maybe. I don't know. So I was reading about 19th century, 18th century hemp use in Prussia, and it was really fascinating to see how important of an agricultural product hemp was. Obviously, canvas was used for sails, for boats, and all the paper that's in all of the Prussian state. It seems like most of the paper.
Believe it or not, I don't wear those, but from what I understand, stockings, I believe you call them, what women are wearing, they were made from hemp supposedly for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, maybe no, but I think with hemp, one couldn't argue that there was a lack of supply, because hemp is literally called weed for a good reason, and it's a swamp plant, which can be highly useful. They say that, they switched to oil in terms of, how do you call it, controlled planned obsolescence, right?
Right. And it's interesting because you look at after World War one of the major plans was to reduce foreign exports and imports. So to bring in other products like oil and canvas, and it'd be way better. And they started using and really encouraging the use of hemp in the 30s. So it's interesting to know that compared to what happened with America, because America made a taxation act that said if you grow this stuff, even though we have theoretically some sort of constitution that protects you, we can get around that. We'll just take everything you have with this crazy tax. Like you grow a plant, we'll steal your house, right? Unless we need the rope, because we have to have some people for making that rope. But otherwise, unless you have this marijuana tax stamp, you're not allowed to do that. And we started making all these synthetic products. And we would have thought of that as being a rather like Third Reichian thing, I think, to make these nylon ropes and synthetic ropes. Sounds like a plastic like thing, but that was the American solution. Hemp was the European solution. Anyway, it's interesting because now you have laws in Europe that even the Soviet Union was making hemp oil, hemp fuel, hemp diesel, and now you have these weird regulations in the European Union that are stopping people from creating hemp. And that's even separate and aside from the general cannabis laws, because I think you mentioned recently that they're changing the laws. Germany just recently added a new cannabis law that is interesting, that Germany's like decriminalized cannabis, but also it's supposedly retroactively should be helpful for legalizing people who had possession of up to 25 grams are in jail, right? So like if anyone's been arrested It should help get people
Oh,
out.
wait. 13 out of 16 federal states, Bavaria has released the most people with 33 prisoners freed. Blah, blah,
Right.
blah. Baden-Württemberg has released
19.
19 people.
Yeah.
Please give me a break.
I just wanted you to see that. I thought it was just too good. 13, 16, 33, 19. For those of you who don't know, those were this week's lottery numbers. You should check your bowl. Yeah, basically.
So the
Pretty
short
crazy.
update for the Germany situation, from what I understood, I even talked to someone at the festival, and they said they want to open a cannabis club now.
Oh, cool.
And but I
It should
mean,
be
I
a
listened.
cannabis fraternity, a cannabis lodge, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in their particular case, I wasn't too happy, let's say, with the plan, because they said they want to buy some strange devices to like grow it indoor with hydroponics, and he's even said you can't really do it organic that way. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be part of your club then. But
Yeah.
but so there seems to be like some midway regulation now, where I guess they want to organize people in clubs. I haven't looked into this too deeply, but overall the main thing is just that I guess since 6 months, if I'm imagining this correctly, they legalized it. Although the situation has been, how should I say? It has been diffused somewhat, I think, for many years, at least in Austria, I know, and it's still, I guess, the same regulation that for possession of minor amounts, basically what they did, they more or less gave you a slap on the wrist and said, you know, maybe you want to see a psychologist or not, or go make some drug tests. And then after 1 or 2 years, they expunged the record. So that's what they did for minor amounts in Austria for, I believe, at least 10, 15 years or something. So they already practically hadn't really decriminalized it yet, but how should I say, made it almost like a very minor offense. Now it's interesting that Germany, of course, did this. The new government in Austria is going to be interesting. We will have elections in 2 weeks. I mean, interesting. If someone finds political theater interesting, it very much looks as if the Freedom Party, which is the right-wing party in Austria, is going to win. They, of course, because of whatever strange principles they have, it's always funny how political bias can make you blind on at least one eye. They, of course, would be against decriminalization, I guess, from anything I've heard, or they always make jokes of it and they never really discuss, you know, the real fundamental issues of alcoholism or general drug, you know,
Yeah, I
addiction
find that
issues
really
and so
I
on.
find all that really interesting because I haven't talked to very many people in a few years up until recently who are so adamantly against drugs as like the Mormons, right? The Mormons are very much against and opposed, which is separate and apart from American culture today, right? Essentially everyone has some sort of a coffee or a cigarette or a vape in their hands and it's become very normalized. And I can see the other side of that as well. However, with things like cannabis, you have to wonder about the endocannabinoid system and apoptosis, these increasing cancer rates from people that are not. I mean, we naturally have cannabinoids which are not being not being treated. You have cannabinoid deficiency essentially, and so it's something that might be a health concern. And I don't think people really want to anticipate that on the right wing.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, that, of course, also, I mean, we have part of the explanation why they don't want to anticipate this, because we have, what did we talk about with Dr. Shiva when we interviewed him? The Freedom Health Network or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they are more interested in, I don't know, backhand developing more mRNA or whatever strange things they're doing, because otherwise, I mean, nobody would even have to smoke. It would, I think, just be about, you know, consuming some products that just contain some of those, like high quality hemp seeds or whatever. Nobody would even have to get high to have a supply of that. But then, of course, it's doubly strange or suspicious why they would try to completely remove it from, you know, the food supply and general availability for human consumption. It's only been in the past 10 years that even hemp seeds can regularly be bought at like a biofood store, or, you know, there's more of a health driven interest in hemp overall. Because before it was just labeled as, oh, you're just a dumb getting high, whatever,
Yeah,
which may or may not be true. But
I don't know.
this has only
I say
recently
this,
come about.
I say this mainly for people in Utah and Germany and Austria, because if you don't know this, but hemp seeds will not get you high. They will get you healthy. They have all the omega oils, all the fibers, all the proteins. I think if you're not eating hemp, you should start eating hemp. It's not going to have any THC or any of the psychoactive qualities in it. So just figure that out. I don't know. That's a big step. I feel like it's really dangerous how many people are so averse to hemp as a food, as a clothing, as a fuel source. It's really strange to me. And
As a building material,
as a
hempcrete.
building material, it's insane that it's associated, because this is a plant which can be used to make energy, to make anything, right? And instead, we're using it, like you're saying with this hydroponic system for people to grow drugs. They're using energy to grow this plant to do nothing with.
Actually,
it's a
I mean, it
satanic
has an
inversion.
effect because they sell it in their cannabis club, then I guess in that particular example. But yes, you're correct.
But if
Especially
you're using it to relax, which is like, I'm not saying this wrong, maybe you have cancer, you need to relax, but a lot of the time, cannabis is being used to do the exact opposite of what naturally hemp is for, which is to do all these things and to be so proactive and productive and make birdhouses, and instead it's like inverted, because we're using energy to grow it, even, right? We're like taking, it's a satanic inversion.
Yeah, actually, you're right on point, because hemp is one of the plants which to me always seemed like, oh, it's simply, very effective, as they would say in a Pokemon game or whatever. But it's so very effective or super effective that it actually almost makes the economic system, I don't want to say redundant, but it kind of throws a wrench in certain aspects, simply because hemp, again, grows like weed. Put it in a swamp, you can probably even ameliorate the soil with it. You have 100,000 uses for it. Yes, please go on.
More oxygen
exactly,
than most other plants, right?
Yeah, there we go. So we can have a eco aspect too. And just now, you could actually, if you want to pull it up, we could have it as B-roll, the first video from Weather and Water. And maybe people are going to start planting weed, because Austria basically is becoming an inland sea.
Oh yeah, we really should have opened up with this. I'm sorry. This is because I'm not there right now, but that could change. It says, pray for Austria, pray for Romania, pray for Europe. I mean, it's getting hit so hard. Is the Czech Republic in trouble too, I would assume?
Just briefly, what is this strange magic going on in the top left? Corn, grain, and a tractor? What's happening?
Oh my god, I have no. It's this picture. What is the image? Open image, new. Nope, they don't want you to see. What is the corn? YouTube. Oh, there you go. Cream of the crop. Head to the fields of farmers where they take you on a tractor ride. What? Are they trying to radicalize me into agriculture?
Maybe they finally heard David Ewing Jr. and like, okay, we really got to prop up our marketing game on having people become interested in farming themselves again. Or they just need a whole lot of slave workers, for the Bill Gates branch,
or they know
of the New World Order farming systems.
Or they know the kind of girl,
cricket farming.
Like, they know the kind of girl, that's like, I shouldn't watch these. Basically, a nice, beautiful green tractor like that. I think they know that's what appeals to people. People love tractors.
And also, just as we're on topic, of course, I know you want to pull it up, open source ecology, because tractors, of course, and all the machines that modern farmers are encouraged to use are incredibly expensive. They're incredibly hard to maintain. It's even possible that your tractor has a software and the update crashes and your tractor becomes useless. Yeah. All of that insanity, which technically can be omitted and replaced by a better system. For example, open source ecology, where I believe you even have like 3D blueprints and all the manuals and everything to anyone who wants to become an open source farmer. There is at least a starting point here.
OSE. Yeah, and so this is a big deal because, like he just said, you don't understand how much they make you pay to have a software update for your tractor. That's a real thing. So being able to have software that runs that is not even just that's the beginning of how big this is of a deal.
Because if we look at economy, we have technically human ingenuity, creativity, and manual labor. But I would argue that most of the real energy input into the system, or even economic benefit, is either from mineral resources, which are already there and are simply mined. That is a natural process, how they were forming.
And also the ecosystem with like worms and birds, like the interaction.
Exactly. And then it's simply farming, whereas the plant, of course, you may have to tend to it to some extent. Also, even here, there's great differences in how this is done. Actually, I want to give a shout out, even though I'm not even drinking alcohol myself. If you want to go to a website called schmelzer.at, so SCHMELZER, just to give an example, or I can pull it up. Let's see. Yes, there we go. So I had the privilege of being there for a day, and the guy on the right hand has been running this for many years. It's like a winery, I guess. And so again, I don't really drink alcohol, rarely ever, maybe a few times a year. This was really interesting because what he explained to me, so he does biodynamic farming. He even exited a label called Demeter, which is generally seen to be the highest ranking, let's say, mainstream known biological label, or not just mainstream. It's not a mainstream label, but let's say that is known to the mainstream or is a brand that is recognized. And he even quit there because he said they cannot possibly verify all of the steps and the regulations that they would put forth, which is based on Rudolf Steiner and biodynamics. So he left there and basically said, I'm just going to do it myself, because anyhow, only the farmer themselves really can verify if they properly do all the steps.
Right.
And the main thing that he managed already 30 years ago and even won official prizes and everything for it was the ability to create wine which is able to persist and last for many, many years without adding any sulfur or any other chemicals, like basically almost everyone else is doing. And as to what he told me, he said maybe there's a handful of farmers in all of Austria that actually follow this, let's say, highest level of guidelines.
Let's visit these guys.
And
it looks great. Yeah, you went.
sure.
Have you been to this
Yeah,
thing? Or
we've been there. No, we've been
awesome.
there. We've been there. We know them, and also then you don't get headache from drinking it.
Sulfur's messed up. The fact that people are so worried about like organic wine.
Well, organic sulfur is great if you really have organic sulfur as a supplement, for example. But
these synthetic
not
sulfates,
this type.
though,
yes,
the synthetic sulfates are so dangerous, man. And like so, a lot.
And
of
on
the
the other
best
hand,
wines, you're just going
you
to
can
a country that hasn't
almost
made wine
see
before.
it on the color. I want to wonder like how many parts per million like gold or whatever is in these. So that's the threshold point where I'm like, okay, maybe here wine or these type of spirits even can actually have a beneficial effect on health if they are containing these minerals, for example, and are just not processed to make
the best wine comes from grown near volcanoes. It's always been true. And so
minerals.
Yeah, so what you'll do is if you go to a place that's famous for wine, it's probably been stripped of everything. All the minerals are gone. So you're going to go take that wine and grow it somewhere else. And you try to find another place in the world where they haven't grown wine yet. They haven't done agriculture. And when you get there, you're going to get about 4 to 20 years probably before it's completely destroyed. Again, you're going to go to some other place until it's abandoned. That's usually what happens. They end up stripping all the minerals out of the earth. So biodynamic is really important because it makes it possible for sustaining that place so that your kids can have wine or whatever you want. Gold water.
Think of this. So this may be the fairy tale part to some, but anybody who's done some experiments themselves know this is not too far-fetched. He even says that now, since he's been going around the tractor many, many times, of course, he's also developing his own fertilizers, let's say. Of course, he uses no chemical fertilizers at all. He uses certain blends of oils and other tinctures and mixtures he makes. But then he said even sometimes now when he realizes, okay, maybe actually tomorrow or tonight I should go with the tractor for this and this and this type of oil, it would be good, or fertilizer, whatever, for the plants. But for some reason he's quote unquote too lazy or not motivated enough to do it that day. What he's doing then is just sitting in front of his table, like imagining this, meditating, and then the next day when he's checking on the plants, it looks as if he actually had gone out to do what he didn't do, but only, let's say, mentally planned or foresaw or put his energy towards. So that's, of course, when it gets really interesting, and also where you get into this whole idea, what we discussed with David about food security and so on. If you organize permaculture in a really smart way, I think the yields and everything can actually be amazing without needing crazy amounts of human labor.
There's also a sustainability thing because, or a diversity thing that happens because you might not have a monocrop at that point. In fact, you won't, but you'll end up having birds, ducks. You'll have pigs. You have goats. You have all these different things that are interacting within the worms and everything. That there's more food that's being produced of different varieties, and so a lot of the time with permaculture, you might have to have a flower plant that's bringing in bees that are then pollinating the area where there are fruit trees, right? There's all these things that work. There's a spice plant to deter the deer from eating the vegetable garden. They're all these things that work together, and we should really bring that back. That's all I'm saying. Also, do you have the website for Dietmar's garlic by any chance?
Oh yeah, you can go on iq-tink.com.
tink.com.
Yeah, like think, but without the H.
Like Tinkerbell. IQ Tink?
Yeah.
That's so base. Dietmar is my boy. I love this guy. So, one long story told short, my dad, who has a bit of dementia going on, seems to get up, run around, do all kinds of cool things, and enjoy himself and have interesting stories to tell. And a lot of it happened after Dietmar gave us garlic tincture. So I'm a big fan of garlic. I've always been. I think garlic's pretty cool. And
you are in the Gilroy garlic capital. You can translate the site if you go on Deutsch. Actually, that should be a little bit clearer that that's the translation. When you did it manually. Yeah. I mean, this is also just auto-translated, but it's not exactly obvious to a non-English speaker that he should click on Deutsch to translate the page. So I'll point that out.
That's fair. Put a little bit of American flag or something like that. I don't know. But basically, these products are extremely strong garlic tincture, but also it's not like a tincture you've had before because it's like a bioactive garlic that's still alive, essentially, without giving away anything too much.
Basically, and it's water soluble, and we just discussed hemp earlier, and this is actually how I first knew about this, is that because I have another friend who's doing a very amazing, or even the first in Austria, CBD company. Mm-hmm. And then very quickly with their chemists, they developed a water-soluble CBD simply because they realized this has a much higher absorption rate and in certain use cases is simply much more effective. And by now, this particular product you're seeing here has been developed for about 2 years. Right. And also, from what we understand, because of this particular form, there is also basically no toxicity, which otherwise may occur when consuming high amounts of garlic or garlic oil. But from what we could research so far, there is no toxic effect at all. And it just seems to be very, how should I say, harmonizing to the energy system. It has 100 million effects, none of which I would be allowed to maybe even mention here. Right. But there is let's say, short... Yes, go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, look at this even, like, compare it with an oil extract versus a soluble. The way how soluble the garlic is also is something really amazing with the process. It's unique. It's not the same as any other process I've seen. It's more similar to certain kinds of alchemical nut butter processes, but there's just something really great about how this is done. It's really strong. It's really impressive, and I think everyone should probably eat garlic. You know, that's just a personal opinion.
Oh yeah, and I spoke with many people now, of course, especially because I'm familiar with this product, and especially, of course, you may not be surprised about this, people from Hungary and anywhere else, let's say more remote, they're all like regularly, yeah, I love garlic, or they're like, yeah, I work, like one friend, shout out Tamás, he's working in a cheese factory in the UK, he's from Hungary, and he's just regularly eating like a piece of garlic, but I think what you do then is you eat it whole, because then it's easy to digest. So the one thing I would not recommend is like take a piece of garlic and chew it, especially in the morning, and swallow it. Like that's maybe it's just a detox effect, but that makes you feel, or at least me, really strange. But if you want to do it like on a long-term thing, what you can do is you just eat a whole piece without chewing it. And that was recommended, and even like people in in forestry or whatever, they do it so they don't get attacked by too many bees and they have energy. Yeah. So people that kind of need it, they are familiar with garlic. And the cool thing about this is just that garlic grows everywhere. So anyone
I
can
was
start
literally
eating
about to say
garlic.
that. I was a little Croatian sense. I was about to say I eat garlic like an apple. I was about to say that. That's hilarious. Yeah, you are a savage. You're based, bro. And you're not even me. There's other people that do that. That's beautiful. But there's some people that don't, and I wanted to bring that up too. Because the thing about that is he makes a garlic tink that has like lemon and like some different flavors for people that don't want to be so overwhelmed by garlic. Some people just aren't garlic people. And even then I would say you should get this because it's not about whether or not you like the taste of garlic. It really does have an interesting, I mean, it's gonna keep the vampires away, all right, YouTube? That's all I'm trying to say. You really gotta check this out. And you know what else, Dietmar? Get Dietmar on this. I want a I want a code that's Exertus.
Well, I mean, technically, you should already have it.
Okay.
But
So what we're gonna know? I want to put up a code. So I'm gonna have this figured out.
no, don't worry.
Like,
We're gonna get this figured out and comment
yeah,
it
I'm gonna
for
have this
Andreas.
figured out. Like, but basically, what we want is a code that's like Exertus. We're gonna put it somewhere by the next video, so that you can get like a little 10% or something off, or help with shipping. Yeah, mineral water and garlic. That's what we're doing here. Okay, cool. Legit.
Right.
But that
So
flood,
yes.
bro. But that flood. This is the most
Yeah,
casual
so that was the segue actually
news
with the hemp
show
because
ever.
I thought with the hemp, you know, they're gonna plant a lot more hemp now if they need to remedy
Okay,
all the
cool.
swamps. That's gonna occur now,
I
maybe.
know
I
this
don't
is
know.
like Vietnam. You guys just need rice fields in the middle of your Volkswagen parking lot. That's kind of brutal. Vienna City Beach Club? Okay. Wow. Yeah, this is terrible. I heard that like 33 people died, 19 people lost, you know. Of course, 666 destroyed homes.
Are you serious?
No.
I haven't seen those statistics yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the one thing that's kind of a joke, of course, so the guy that I talked to you about last time, who's the chancellor now, who basically effed up the quote-unquote terror attack, where suddenly 300 policemen were there 30 minutes later in Vienna City 2 years ago. The same guy now, of course, now is taking pictures and like, oh, I'm in the command center, you know, because he's like a
Wait, what's
military
his
guy
name again?
formerly.
What's his name?
Nehammer. Nehammer. Hammer. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Nehammer.
Nehammer. Oh, that's right. Like that's very interesting. Like Nihon.
Yeah, Nihon.
Flood. Well, I wanted to see him in his command center, but I'll just look for the picture of him again. Here, Carl Nehammer.
Yes.
I could totally see this guy like in a American disaster movie, or some Austrian equivalent. You know, like, oh man,
So
the meteor is coming.
Denial Hammer, yeah, that's a good one. So he's just an amazing guy. He can't even talk properly, if you ask me. He's not very sympathetic or anything. And like I said, this government had the lowest approval ratings ever for the past several years. So now he's getting a slight, at least PR boost, so that again they can make the election so exciting. Because until now it seemed like, oh, the Freedom Party is going to win for sure, but now maybe the Black Party again. You know,
Oh man.
again, not a big believer in any of those things, but well, at least it can be maybe more close, or you know, at the very least, what's for sure is if anyone has the capacity to fudge anything during the election, now they would have an excuse to point to be like, oh, you know, this could have affected public opinion in one way or the other. Of course, other people say it has no effect. I don't really know if anyone changes their voting choice, and I also know even less whether their voting choice actually makes a real difference. But yeah, so that's what's going on here. Vienna, Danube is almost, as you can see, going up to the city. Yeah, it's of course the media has been going crazy.
Dresden Bridge is collapsed, and they have to you know, they're gonna have to like rush to move the bridge because it collapsed. So crazy stuff's going on everywhere right now, all over Europe. It's nuts. It's nuts. So much water. So much water. What about weather manipulation? And a completely unrelated thing. Let's talk about geoengineering. It's a curiosity we have. This is not related. Just a complete hard subject change. geoengineering.
Yeah, so I haven't deeply looked into the relation to the most recent events. This was a video recommended. I believe I actually saw this before. This one is in German, but anyone interested in the topic, I'm sure you have your favorites in English, but this may also be worth checking out, where it's simply explaining different ways and different patterns. I also have another link with a list of like US patterns for weather shaping.
Give me a little
There's a
rundown on this idea. So what you're telling me is that there are people out there that, like men, right, that like want to like control, like that want to be God. They want to play God. Is that kind of the idea here? And you're saying that some of these men trying to play God, they like to do stuff to the sky in hopes of making the sky tamed, like they want to turn the beast into their pet. Is that kind of what's going on here? Yeah.
Well, that seems to be a recurring theme overall, I'd say.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I mean, geoengineering could be a great thing, though, right? Like, think about all the wine country. If you had a drought or something like that, think about super condensed moon wood. Have you heard about this? Mondholz.
Of course, but how do you bring that up now?
Oh, I don't know. I just heard about it and it's fascinating. But this idea
Really? You
that
just recently heard about this?
yeah.
I haven't brought it up before. This is amazing. So this is an interesting guy. I don't think that the houses are exactly cheap, but the idea is, unless you want to explain it, Andreas.
No. I mean,
Is it,
if you know about it, it's way better. Basically, I'll
well,
say that everything I saw
yes.
about this was extremely scientific and very real. At first, I was like, Moonwood? What is this? Magic? But it's actually like Swiss scientists that are studying the different qualities of wood picked at different times, essentially, and how the condensation in the wood affects the quality of the wood. That's the basic gist of what I got out of it. It's fascinating.
Exactly, with results, for example, that your wooden house can withstand a flamethrower.
Yeah.
So it is pretty amazing. And maybe this even goes along the lines of hempcrete, which may have similar capacities. But here you just use wood, you cure it in a particular way. There's different talks by the guy. If you just look him up on YouTube, I'm sure there's also things in English. Definitely worth checking out. And apparently, especially the Japanese are customers of his. So they seem to appreciate this in particular, also because he was visited by some monk years ago from Japan, who was like, "Oh, this is our ancient building technique." Unfortunately, I'm not as good with impersonations as David. I'll try. And
Thank you for not.
they basically said, yeah, they wanna, they started buying from him now, and many people in Japan, especially, are getting these type of houses now, which I guess
I
is pretty
want to
cool.
live in this for so many reasons. It's like this is what it should look like inside a place generally, I think, but also, yeah, it just feels right in so many ways. And the study of wood is something we've probably forgotten so much more about wood than people. The past forgot more about wood than we'll ever learn again. This is really amazing. And yeah, I think that we should interview this guy. I'm gonna reach out to him. Let's do that, and let's get him on the show
Oh yeah.
to talk about this stuff because it's really fascinating. But yeah, you could. That's the point of geoengineering to that conversation is you can control the weather. You can control what's going into the wine. You can control what's going into the wood. You can make sure that an area that's super hot. Someone was just talking about how it was like 50 degrees, which is really hot, by the way. 50 degrees centigrade is like 120 degrees. I don't know if you're in Kuwait or something. 35 degrees is already too hot for me, centigrade. So in those circumstances where they're putting aerosol or something into the sky, I mean, how many times have you been walking by a cloud that looks like a rainbow oil exhaust out of the
No, but
back
the
of
thing
your
is, I mean,
Lincoln?
in Dubai, it's official, no? Wasn't
Yeah,
there like,
it's
because I
official.
listened to some mainstream conversation and there they were like, yeah, in Dubai or whatever, they're doing this officially. I mean, there's even websites now by the German military that talk about geoengineering. So it's not
Dubai's
really like
doing it.
that.
Then there's what's it called? Happy Sunsets Company. Mexico, is that the right one? No, Sunsets. What's the Sunsets Company? Geoengineering. Is it called Making Sunsets? Make Sunsets is a geoengineering company, and they had to go to Mexico to release particles in the atmosphere, and the Mexican government was like, "Stop!" Basically. And so for like a month or two, the skies of Los Angeles and Texas were clean. San Diego, like it was just there was no smog or exhaust anymore. And all of a sudden they started reproducing that in the United States. So basically, Mexico tried to stop geoengineering, but now we've moved it domestically. So
Just so I understand the timeline on this, it kind of didn't make sense to me. Can you repeat that?
So let's see. Make sunsets, Mexico. Let me find out when this happened. Mexico, January of 2023, the Mexican government cracked down on solar geoengineering, particularly forcing the pausing of operations by the company.
Okay, the only part I didn't get, what the smog was there and then it vanished. Why? Or it came back to which place?
So because in Los Angeles and Texas, there was all of the smog every day, all the time, kind of like there is in China, right? When the Mexican government in January said to ban these companies from releasing particles into the atmosphere in Mexico, in California, outside of Mexico, all of a sudden the sky was cleaner. So the idea that they were depositing these things just in the right area, that they would fly inland 50 miles, 100 miles, right, and create these giant storms.
So Mexico basically improved the weather for Los Angeles?
By forbidding this company. And again, this company's name is Make Sunsets, right? That's the name of the company. That's like an operation title, basically. It's crazy.
It is, yes. So the one thing that was maybe somewhat peculiar about the weather in Austria is simply that it's been extremely hot for many weeks, really, really hot. And supposedly also then the soil has even more difficulty of absorbing water if it's been so hot and dried out for such a long time. So a few factors are combined here. There's also some strange weather patterns emanating. The one image or video I saw from Posen, for example, it's like posing, but Posen in Germany, where you have strange radial cloud or whatever else patterns emanating. That's supposedly, of course, only to be a weather measurement station. Mainstream, of course, have their own explanations for all of this, but it's something I'll look into a little bit more. It's definitely very, very peculiar weather, and everyone in politics obviously, of course, wants to use this for their own gain now, whether to be like, oh, we're protecting you, or oh, it's the evil climate change, or whatever. But definitely this has to be investigated, hopefully, because otherwise people are just like, oh, it's just going to escalate more because humans are evil and I'm driving too much in my, oil-based car or whatever, if people can believe that. So
I feel like these are the kinds of things we need to really harp on, that we have evidence of cloud seeding all around the world. Geoengineering is in full swing. It's not some sort of hypothetical. People should be more aware of this, the introduction of chemicals, something to think about. But also, let's really quickly look at the video that we did on, what was it, the cloud? Who's the doctor? Cloud making machine?
Majid Abdelaziz Weather Making Machine was the title.
Right. We did this great video with Majid Abdelaziz, and it's a fascinating look at weather machines, cloud busting, and an alternative way that we can work with nature and to actually harness the power of nature to make clouds, or to help the clouds manifest on their own without necessarily poisoning the atmosphere. I feel like this is a better solution. It's also based on Wilhelm Reich's work, and Hanin talked about this affecting emotion, affecting like the animal magnetism of people themselves, right? Animal magnetism being the frequency or the energy, that is emanating. We are made of electromagnetic energy, and so any weather effect or any radio effect we will be affected by that. So we can imagine people that are stressed out by this. Active denial system is the militarization of this to mesmerize people.
What did you talk about earlier with that cartoon fish? Sonar system and U-boats, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. Active denial systems can make you bleed out your eyes, but also they can be non-lethal, right? Or less lethal is, I think, the word we like to use today. but you can just set up a ray gun and make people sad, right? And this is not very different than the technology that you would use to make.
Or set up a very big
rain.
ray gun and make the whole continent sad.
Yeah, but theoretically, you could also make people happy with one of these, and that's what kind of bums me out. No one talks about that. The love gun, the love ray. This could be a love ray, bro. We
I
could
wonder
weaponize
if
aloha.
yeah, I wonder if anyone has thought about it that way. Now it seems more to be like
If you
dumbing
think
down
the
and removing
CIA
emotion.
didn't
But
think about how they could make a love ray, then you haven't read their paperwork. That's all I can say about that.
not enough of it, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, I would also recommend checking out Weather Manipulation by Vortrag von Dr. Philip Zeller. We'll have to watch this all the way through.
What's of course interesting is this is at the very least a doctor, and of course trying to go here in a scientific way. Of course, this guy will not be invited by any mainstream or anyone asking about it or anything. And here again, it seems in Austria at least, all the political parties, at least quote unquote, are in cahoots to the extent that they would not even ask for, oh, maybe we should look at these things. Why was the weather so strange? What exactly is going on? That's of course still decidedly a non-mainstream topic.
Radio pushing nanoparticulates around? That's crazy, right? We're not supposed to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like beyond the political sphere, I guess.
Yeah. Pretty important stuff, though. I feel like this is a great video. I'm glad you found this one. And then also you have Geoengineering Watch. I'm going to pull that up real quick. This is the geoengineeringwatch.org, which is, look at this. Amazing.
Yeah, so here it's maybe not the exact site, but they supposedly also have like a list of patents that are related to this. And these are all patents, that just describe different methods of weather modification. Can be interesting to check out. Oh, we see.
Yeah,
Dr. Shiva's best friend is on there.
Well, it is real. So that's all you got to say about that. That's pretty important. And then what's this Instagram? Dr. Yashiro. Who's this? Yashiro Toshinori.
So this guy I just found through a reference on Facebook because people were talking about water, and then some people were posting this and be like, oh, this guy is like water bending. I haven't watched his videos closely enough to discern whether there is, let's say, a direct causal effect between what he's doing. But all I can say is I've read a book quite some years ago about, it's called like The Urban Shaman or something, by some, I think, Hawaiian inspired individual. They claim that a group of shamans can even divert a hurricane. But I mean, yeah, if a huge array can produce one, why shouldn't, on the other hand, again, we talked about magnetics. If the human has a magnetic field and so on and can somehow project that, then, it could go both ways. And maybe you don't need an antenna. You can do a lot of this yourself. And even here, I have a different friend who's been in South America at some point with a tribe. And he said there he even literally witnessed when they started singing and dancing to bring about rain. Just then the clouds started forming. So it seems like these are the kind of cultural exchange we should.
We always, as kids, would do a little bit of water bending, but I was part of the dark arts side of the junior lifeguards. We would mock Poseidon. We'd just be like, "Is that all you got, Neptune?" Or Poseidon, depends if you were Greek or if you were more Roman. But like, "Is that all you got, Neptune?" And then yell at the sea and be like, "You're weak. You're weak. You're nothing. You've lost your power." Like there's a 6-year-old, you'd be like, "You lost your power. You are a fallen god." And this was in order that the waves would get big enough that we could boogie board, and we would turn our backs to the sea. We would turn our backs to the sea. Be like, "You are nothing to us," and then the waves would get huge, and then knock us over. That was good times.
Yeah, the law of the sea versus the law of the land. Let's see who's gonna win with the flood. Maybe that's why they flooded everything, because they were like, "This is our jurisdiction now. We're gonna flood the whole plain." And now we're all under sea law. So
I sympathize with Neptune, because he's Jupiter's younger brother and he loves Juno. It's such a weird thing going on. Toxic legacy: how the weed killer glyphosate is destroying our health and the environment. Well, yeah, glyphosate. Y'all know glyphosate, right? You should get a T-shirt that says "No glyphosate." Get glyphosate with a big line crossed through it would be cool. I don't know.
You can buy it in cans. Yeah, this was just somehow
You
in
can buy it.
reference to the whole weather discussion also, or no, because also again there was somebody posting about gluten, and again I pointed out the thing we showed last time with Goldkime, what kind of wheat you actually want to get. And someone rightly also pointed out, because the meme, it was a meme, it basically said, how strange, even though I would also, question that statement, but it said like, oh, humans have been eating bread for 10,000 years. How strange, only for the past 30 years, everyone has a gluten allergy. And of course, one of the aspects is that because the grain is denaturized, as we've shown last time also with the goldkime.com, anyone can check out the basic definition. You just simply want unprocessed whole grain flour, not heat stabilized or anything. Then you get a completely different quality of bread. That's the one aspect. And the other one, of course, which is included in that, if you use chemical fertilizers and other BS like glyphosate on your crops, well, big surprise if then you're going to have problems when you eat it, because it's not really made for human consumption. And what I also found kind of funny, they literally put there the weed killer, they want to kill the weed instead introduce the glyphosate. So that's definitely been a downgrade in human diet, that claim.
I see also Mephistopheles decoding the Goths. I have not watched.
Oh yeah,
yet.
right. So here we go from the top.
I think it's gonna be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So I haven't watched it yet, but I was like, I gotta put it in the list right now. Also, everyone subscribe to his.
Him, right?
Exactly. It's called Forgotten Arbonite History.
Right.
It's one of the recent Neuropas from about 3 months ago. And here he's talking with Pirate, and they just go deeper into that. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm definitely gonna check it out. All these stories about the different cultures and all the different connections. Definitely worth a look.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really love the video that we did with him, so I will look forward to this, and also the history of the Indo-Aryan connection, particularly across Scandinavia, but even into the Mediterranean, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be interesting. Very cool. And then you also have video unavailable. John Carpenter's See Leben.
Oh.
Do you want? Can you pull this up on your end? I'll put the.
Oh, it's fine. It's just They Live. It's They Live, the They Live movie. Yeah. It was just funny. Yeah. It was just funny that for some reason this is now online on YouTube for free. I still haven't exactly figured out how the YouTube copyright system works, or some people or channels can get away with uploading full movies. I'm not sure if their channels are monetized or whatever is happening, but that's like a super classic movie.
Yeah, in German dubbed even? Is it dubbed?
Yeah, complete German. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to put that link up for people. And you guys know how to use a VPN. If you don't have a VPN, drink mineral water, eat garlic, get my VPN subscription.
Check the link below.
Bottom of the screen. Let's be real. Let's be all grown up about our lives. Okay. What about this? Otkin. This looks kind of base. Is this an ethno-musical group from Siberia? Yes, I think it is.
Oh, yeah, you're skipping around a little bit. This is a recommendation by Nachiketa because he's always playing her. The other one, of course, to check out is, what's their name? The Who, DHU. These are the ones maybe you already know. The Who. No, DHU. That's also, I'm sure, a very interesting band, but that's a different one. DHU. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, in terms of how do you call it, proposition pronoun or something?
The Who. Yes. As in Horton, here's one. Yes. Yeah, they're pretty great. Death metal tartan kind of. You know what? I'll bring this up later as well. There's a movie called Wonderwell, which I just found out about. Do you know about this movie? Carrie Fisher it's like a lesbo witch love story. I don't know. I'm so into this movie. A coming of age fairy tale set between modern day Italy and imaginary realm just beyond Wonderwell that follows Violet, a naive and inquisitive 12-year-old girl, on a thrilling journey, etc., etc., etc. Now, this movie was made in like 2016 and just came out last year because Carrie Fisher died during the making of it. And as we know about Carrie Fisher was also a major script writer. She did all sorts of behind-the-scenes script editing and revisions for hundreds of movie scripts that you've seen or haven't seen, like just tons and tons of work, never putting her name on the thing. And so I think this is one of those examples. I'm pretty excited that this exists. I can't believe it took like 10 years to come out. But one of the, let me see if I can measure music here. I just found this musical artist. Sainko. No, is that right? No. Is it the director? No, this is right. I think this is right. Yeah, this lady, dude. This lady's crazy. She's like Yoko Ono if she was a Mongolian yurt living witch.
Nice.
I don't know. It's just so good. And this is her lying on the ground just screaming for like 3 minutes. It's great. I'm so into it. You got to see it. Oh, yeah. It's hard to find. Her name is Sainko Namchotlak. Yeah, something like that. Super weird. Yeah, it just reminds me of like Maria Abramovich and Yoko Ono combined together. And you can tell she was definitely Carrie Fisher's friend. All right. What about Becky? I know I skipped ahead. We'll go back. Do you want to do this
Oh
one?
yeah, so here we are at the media part. I just put some fun songs or music on the bottom. Anyone who likes media. This is just a song made by Rodrigo Ferrari Nunes, whom we've also had on talking about True Earth, if I remember correctly. And just because somebody reposted it somewhere was like, oh cool, he made a song. I just want to put it into the link list. This is in the series of, how to say, I think this is about a NASA scientist or something. That's why you see this woman there all the time.
I thought maybe
and
he was
just
in
be
love
like,
with this
oh,
Becky, but now I get it.
and maybe in a very particular way, but yeah.
Oh, Becky. All right. Legit. Space shuttle. Do you want to go here or should I just go back a bit? I could go back to the Irish origin of civilization. Do you want to do space or Irish people?
We can finish the space because it's a shorter segment overall.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Since
Maybe I've
it's not
shown
real,
this
I mean.
before. I mean, that's what you just said. But this is apparently a part of, yeah, right. I also picked this from his channel. This is In Fiction We Trust is Rodrigo's channel. He's unfortunately not streaming so much publicly now. His website is rfn.world, if I remember correctly. He's doing really good, let's say, also, how do I want to say, diligent work. He's a social anthropologist. He also wrote a study actually on the flat earth movement or ideology. And yeah, definitely someone to check out.
This is just space is real and straight. Yep. Yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know, most of the space footage, I don't know, like, who doesn't know this, but it's almost all fake, right? All the time. You know that? A lot of the space footage is fake. For reasonable reasons, probably. You can't just have people knowing what you're doing. So you fake it, give them some sort of... No one's required to give you the accurate data. So, yeah, I feel like you don't really want people to know what's really going on. That's pretty reasonable. And there's a lot of really great evidence of the faking, which is just hysterical.
If anything, even remotely related to what they claim they're doing is going on, although there certainly is a lot going on. But yeah.
Yeah, but it would make sense not to show people what's actually going on and to show them something else so that the people are distracted.
Definitely.
That's pretty reasonable.
Basically, I want to put in question, how far away is the real place where something's happening from the place where they want you to focus? It's probably a far, far long way away. So typical distraction techniques. And even here, yeah, so this kind of leads up to the next video or the last video for the whole Earth or cosmology stuff. Because even just now, I'll send you that link also because it's just kind of strange how this is popping up just now. You can pull up the next video that's related about Antarctica. I think that would fit. And I'm putting this here in the private chat, which is a German video.
Germane to the conversation.
Yeah, so what's just kind of curious, of course, flat Earth has been a topic that deliberately is not being discussed honestly by mainstream for many years now. Even it's one of the strange topics that apparently even back in, I'm not exactly sure now, 2016 or something, there was some inquiry or something about fake news on social media. And from what I understand, they particularly mentioned flat Earth. And also apparently Obama, and I wasn't aware of that, in whatever, 15 or whenever he was still president, maybe, deliberately mentions the so-called Flat Earth Society.
We don't have time to mention the Flat Earth Society.
Exactly, which is interesting because according to any and all people that are investigating this cosmology, from what I understand, they all say that that's basically a psyop operation that's deliberately put there to mislead people. Almost everyone agrees on that, to whom I've spoken so far. So that, of course, makes it double interesting. But anyhow, why I want to...
You've seen the Illuminati card game,
Oh, yeah.
Flat Earth card, which is adorable because it's the
People laugh,
misinterpretation.
but the flat earthers know something.
Yeah. The Flat Earthers' weird alternative geology has led them to a gold strike, and you may draw as many plot cards as the number you rolled. The joke here being that this is not the Flat Earth model, but this is what people think the Flat Earth model is. They're like, wait, if the world were flat, then wouldn't it be you'd sail off the edge, all this square? This is the joke about it. But if it's not that, then this is like saying that the model you're familiar with is not what you think it is either. Like, your idea of the globe is actually pear-shaped. Neil deGrasse Tyson will tell you. So nobody's actually talking about the way the world really looks. And that's both literally true and a metaphor.
Well, but if Neil deGrasse Tyson says that, then it means they must have taken those snapshots of the Earth at exactly the right angle, that it just managed to look like a sphere from that particular perspective. Did they ever account for that?
That also reminded me of a tweet recently. What was it? Hold on, do that for a second. But Elon Musk recently pierced the firmament. Let me
What?
see here. Yeah, there we go. So Stephen King. Stephen King posted, popular mechanics says SpaceX explosion in November blew a hole in the ionosphere. Right? Well, you know what that's about, right? Operation Fishbowl, where there was a thing that the U.S. government did for a long time trying to blow holes in the ionosphere and in maybe even the firmament, whatever that means, and launching nukes at the sky, essentially. It's a really interesting idea. There was bluegill, starfish, and urtica in order to, on some people say, just to test what happens with nuclear bombs. Other people say that the scientists were slightly more specific with their tests and what they were trying to test. Just straight up, try to blast it towards the magnetic equator to blast through the ionosphere. That was the original goal. And if that was impossible to do and to continue to try, then that's pretty impressive that they're saying Elon Musk has finally done that. That actually might mean something. It's pretty low-key.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well,
I don't trust any of those. We had the German movie on. You just put it away again. I mean, don't need to show it again. I just wanted to point out that it seems this year this topic is picking up again. And it goes so far that even, the German colony on one of their propaganda channels, which of course they call Science Cops, puts out, I haven't listened to the whole of it. I mean, at least what they do mention is that there is differing theories. So that's, I guess, good. But they quote Flat Earth Society, so either they're not aware or deliberately reference them.
The production values here tell me that they're deliberately aware, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I always wonder if an expensive set also means a relative increase in IQ. I'm not always sure about that. But I just know one other show they did about water filtration, where I'm aware that, basically they're just making fun of things as you are, I guess you have these like science buster things, there's always these funny people that explain science to you. And usually what they do is, how should I say, they try to lead you away from anything you should actually investigate yourself to find out if it can be beneficial or not, or interesting or not even, yeah. So the mainstream go back to sleep programming.
Where's that meme that's like maps of flat Earth around the world? Like, it shows you like all the different maps, including NASA's map. Basically, you look at the ancient Hebrew cosmology, the geography, and you have a mast that's like the turtle on the elephant's back, and Shoal is in its gut, right? And so it's interesting because it isn't flat the same way people think that square map is, because you're still inside of some sort of a snow globe, which is a complete inversion. So there's something kind of metaphysical about that as well. But I think it's important to, at very least, deny and to reject false science, right? False observation, fake measurement, and maybe it's worth it.
Fake mathematics, you know.
Yeah. And so you're better off just saying, all right, I don't know. I know at least NASA's lying to me, and I can work with this metaphorical model. I almost think that makes you ideologically more independent, and it's worth it. But
I thought you were gonna say superior, but that's only my own value system in terms of independence. Maybe
hey,
you
we
want to
can't
pull up.
say that on a Prussian show.
Maybe you want to pull up Masonic cosmology, because that image kind of reminds me.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think there should be a good image for that.
I think Masonic cosmology also, like, between the two pillars, that kind of explains this. Let me see if I can find a good one with the two pillars that have the balls. Oh, that's funny. Where is it at? Okay, here you go. So you have the flat Earth as a globe, and then you have the sky as a sphere, right? So the idea that your inside out sky is turned into a sphere should also intuit that the Earth is turned inside out in this measurement. So you have an inside out, as above, so below. You walk through the two pillars. I don't know. It seemed like you had your own Jungian version of that. What were you thinking?
It just reminded me in terms of Rorschach test, but other than that, I can just say another friend told me once that he had a vision that the Earth is actually shaped like an eyeball, which I also find is a highly interesting idea, or maybe at least the top of it or something. Just because the eye is here square in the middle. Obviously, this whole topic is a lot about perspective. What I hear people argue most about, maybe, or where there's the biggest unwillingness to assume a different perspective is when you talk about ships vanishing towards the horizon, where some people would say, oh, it's because, of course, it's vanishing behind the curve, whereas people that would subscribe to a quote-unquote flat Earth or more level Earth cosmology, they would say, oh, no, it's because of perspective, because anything that's removed far away eventually vanishes below the horizon. So, and that seems to be one contentious point that at least one side is completely unwilling to entertain and often uses as the obvious explanation. Whereas if you consider it in a certain way, it's always important. I mean, there are certain aspects and certain things to consider when viewing anything in terms of what you perceive is not necessarily exactly what it is. Just like I could have a glass of water in front of me, and if I put it in front of my face, it appears bigger. If I put it away, it appears smaller. But still, with any perspective, and especially with these more complex cosmologies, I think it makes sense when you perceive anything, consider what are the additional mental gymnastics I'm applying now to explain this to me. And whatever they may be, just be aware of them and then really consider whether they are correct or whether there maybe is a much simpler explanation that could equally account for all the observations. I mean, from what I understand, there is no, let's say, clear model, and the talk right now is going wild. And that's the next video I want to show about Antarctica and this whole final
quickly,
experiment.
Also on that thought of mirages and illusions, etc. Right, like this idea.
Was it a real image with the floating ship? That looks nice.
Yeah. So this is, so I'm trying to get to the science should be, we can tell you whatever you want to hear, right? That you're seeing this, and there's an angle and a curve, and of course there's a reflection. And this is what we're supposed to understand. But let's say you're just a normal pirate on a boat 100, 500 years ago. This is what you'd be seeing, right? If you
Ghost
see
ship.
Yeah, like, so I find that really interesting, that if you were a pirate 500 years ago, you would have been sailing around with flying ships basically all the time. You would have seen flying ships all the time. I don't know. Just as a side. Okay, wait, where's the video you wanted me to pull up?
It's Antarctica. It's about it's actually about Antarctica, but it also talks about the final experiment.
Lore Lodge, Antarctica, Michael, Civilization, Ancient Bloodlines, Civil War Photos, Dictionary of the Khazars, Jack Parsons. I see Lore Lodge. Where's this video? I don't see it. I don't see your link. Yeah, it's
I'll pull it up for you.
The Rise of the Moors.
No, it's
Oh,
right
okay.
here.
I see why I missed it because
That's
it
the
was
one
like
that's in, yes,
the
full
full
screen.
size link.
It's
Got it. Sorry.
embedded. So this is maybe one of the,
Cooney Tunes?
yes, I mean, almost actually, if you want, you could even play the first 20 seconds just because the intro is really well done, I think.
He's got Will
If,
Duffy on here. That's cool. Okay.
well,
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's a, but play it with music if you play it.
aren't you worried that the music's gonna get us in trouble?
No, I don't think so. It's only 20 seconds and it's morphed.
All right, I'll do it just for you. 1 second.
It's just an observation, and I agree it can be an important observation.
All right.
Yeah, that's enough. So basically, a QNFE is maybe one of the most interesting individuals investigating cosmology, always trying, to apply, which I do not properly claim to understand at all, but doing calculations, trying to verify what other individuals are saying, trying to debunk, trying to explain things. He has a very peculiar accent, which I'm not sure. He's, I think, somewhere from the UK, but he's been on this for a long, long time, and is definitely one of the very interesting individuals to listen to, also in his expose here. And what I marked actually is at about 21 minutes and 45 seconds. That's actually the main part I wanted to show. He talks about final experiment, worth checking out. He gives his understanding as to why that's not a proper experiment and all the issues with it. 21 minutes, 50 seconds.
21.
Because that's something which I had not been aware of at all yet, which basically here what he's doing is he's just looking at one of these original expeditions from 1910 or whatever it's supposed to be.
Look at that guy grabbing his junk right there. Must have been.
Yeah.
Must have been
well,
when men were men. Sorry, go ahead. He's just zooming in on it, and the guy's staring at it. Okay.
Well, you even have pictures later, which is completely insane, where you see them on a ship.
Is he trying to say? I'm sorry. Is he trying to say that this is a mason because it's a hidden hand? Because that's adorable. If that's where he has to hide his hand, is that what's going on? Is that the? Is that the loot? Is that all right? Sorry.
Yeah. That's probably it. So
it probably
what he's
is,
showing,
which is sad.
He's showing these first expeditions and simply points out all the open question in terms of how could they really achieve it, what did they supposedly do there, and at the very least, I don't know, they're like drying kelp and all kinds of things, and they always look very strange. On the one hand, very cleaned up, then on the other hand, they look like complete bums, and it just appears very much as if this could have simply been a PR operation that up to this day many people are referring back to, but actually may not have been a, let's say, real, honest, independent or whatever expedition, but actually just some photo shoot. I don't know, maybe in Alaska, or God knows how exactly they would do it.
Wait, not Adventure
not
Club. What's
a real exploration?
What's the expedition? What's it called? The expedition adventure expedition society. What is it called again? British Exploring Society. Is that it? No, it's one of these exploring societies. I'm trying to remember. So, Johnny Harris did an interesting video on this, actually, talking about, and I was impressed that he did this, because this is telling the truth. That's not what you're supposed to do on TV. Basically, you have a group of people that like to be the first to a place. They say they're going to be the first to the North Pole. And, while they didn't actually go to the North Pole, they did have a camera. They could go to a place and take photos. And they could say that they went to the North Pole. And that was just as good, realistically, So that ended up being the way that it went for so many of these expeditions. Somebody sets up a camera, makes it look like they're at the place, and then they can document it because they have a map of the thing. Maybe somebody flew around it. Maybe they have, whatever the reason is, but it's totally fake. That way they can stop anyone else from getting there first. It's like the moon landing.
And it's already been explored, so
it's like the moon landing.
Yeah,
wow.
It's actually like this. If we shouldn't even talk about, you're completely right. We shouldn't be talking about, why can't we get back to the moon? Let's go back to the moon.
Why can't we get to the North Pole? Yeah.
Let's all go to the North Pole. That's not going to be an issue at all, I'm sure, right? In
Right.
this free and open society.
We have a totally open society, right? We should just go to Antarctica. Who's gonna stop us? Oh wait, like
So actually,
everybody
what
with
you
the
want to do,
military.
you can leave it on B-roll, or you can skip ahead a little bit. Somewhere there's like a 20-30 minute expose of this particular topic with quite interesting comments made by Q and V. But at some point you even literally see, oh, is this even maybe even photo manipulation? He's
Yeah.
calculating how much food they would need. He's doing some more calculations. And also he's showing images where you see those guys in a ship, and one of them at least is in a dress. Yeah. And then this gives me Oddfellow vibes, where I'm again back to the First Lady Boss of the United States, or whatever the F is going on.
We need
Definitely
a song.
more.
Oddfellow Vibes is definitely a song title. Oddfellow Vibes.
So definitely more of a PR up than anything else. And here, of course, only showing that this continues. And he's even talking here. Harry says, oh, and there we're so happy we're dancing around the ball or something, because supposedly at Visual South Pole there is a ball, I guess.
Remind me, why is it that the Fraternal Order of the Oddfellows reminded you of drag queens? Is there a transvestite drag show?
Yes, simply because they officially have like this only men's club, and they're known to do theatrics ever since the 1800 something in the US, and that's one of their features. And that's why I'm always thinking,
that's right, the Hamiltonian Lodge Ball. That's right. Yes. It goes back.
How is it called? Ball with 2A or what?
The Hamilton. How dare you? The Hamilton Lodge Ball was an annual cross-dressing ball in Harlem.
Sorry, English not my native language.
The Lodge's ball in 1869 was recognized as the first drag ball in the United States history. Bruh. Prince Hall.
1869.
The Prince Hall Hamilton Lodge Ball. That's so good. I just can't even believe that. Okay. I love history. I love progress. Prince Harry and team arrive at the South Pole, so you know it's legit. Ain't no way he's doing anything that's fake or... Oh, God. Prince Harry. So what do you think about this? All these people right now. Tim Pool wants to do an expedition with Alex Stein to Antarctica.
Yeah, that's why I've been pointing out these videos for the past months about the final experiment, which is which is a social experiment, if anything,
right,
which has all these super sketchy things associated. And I even saw an individual, unfortunately I couldn't find his YouTube or something, by the name of Lucky Hastings, but maybe we can find it differently, because there's supposedly something called the Flat Earth Lodge, or like it's not a hotel room, but it's like a cabin, which you can book. I forgot, maybe Alaska or something, where apparently you can also do some observations, like far distance, which you shouldn't be able to be doing on a curved surface and so on. And what he did is he basically put a proposition to Philadelphia and said, oh, look, you're going to spend these 100,000. Why don't you just come to my lodge? I'll, provide everything. We can do all these observations. You can save 100K, and, we can do this in a different way. Of course, this is not going to happen. And it's really eerie and crazily suspect how slowly now all these different famous individuals also want to go. And it even seems as if even last year, some people were already aware that, 2024 is going to be the big year. So there is something big coming, for sure. And it's going to be this year because they want to go this year. And William Shatner wants to go. Captain Kirk, Neil deGrasse Tyson wants to go. With the final experiment, a few people want to go.
I feel like if Mr. Beast went, then look at that. Mr. Beast got to
name. He's got to go. I hope he's
he
went.
Go. He went. He survived 50 hours. When he went though, he named an island, or what did he do? He named a mountain Mount Spotify. There's a mountain now called Mount Spotify. Yeah, it was part of the advertisement. Yeah, straight up, bro. Mount Spotify. Crazy. And they have to bring back all the things that they can't leave any pee, They have to bring everything in and out. It's pretty crazy. The whole thing was insane. So yeah. But of course, that just means that they got to the beach. Antarctica, the idea that you're not going to the center, right? That's the thing there. And then also the pyramid. Right. I want them to go to the freaking pyramid. Show us the Antarctica pyramid. Where's the picture? Here we go. Google Maps. What do you guys think about the pyramid in Antarctica? this is from above, but how about just a picture of it from straight ahead somewhere too? Hold on. Here's a pretty good one. There from above, and then this one from the side there. That's pretty good, right? For a mountain, that's pretty cool.
Oh, I think you didn't switch the tab.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that I have the sound on that video, so I couldn't switch tabs very easily. So there's this one. There's this one. This is the Google image above, Google Maps. This is the what happened here? Where'd my image go? You can't even see it. What happened?
Yeah.
They don't want you to know, bro. They don't want you to know. That's the thing. Still, I feel like for a mountain to just look like that, it's pretty weird. You know?
Yeah, and even if it's just an ancient mining site, I mean, probably I was gonna say, they stuffed the interior with bones and don't want anyone to find it, like with the churches. But they still have to decorate it first or make it into a temple, then they can open it up.
Well, there was something also because there's snow around it, but there was like some debris or wind at some point, and they found other pyramid-like rocks that were also in similar locations around the pyramid as the pyramids around the pyramids of Giza, which are similar or directly above and below the constellation of Orion, I believe. So it's another thing that they're both following these stars perfectly. And you could say that's, there's other ways that could happen, but I tend to believe that there was at some point some sort of building and architecture.
The best related idea I saw was that supposedly, and I didn't even know that, the Georgia Guidestones had like some particular configuration with Polaris, which maybe would only be possible within a non-globe cosmology or something like that.
Quick
and then someone said, that's actually why they pulled them off.
So I don't know, I keep thinking to myself, like, there are new people that don't know what we're talking about. So just in case you don't know, the Georgia Guidestones were this secret monument that was put up in Georgia overnight without it was anonymous. No one was told who did this. They're just these giant pillars that are written in every language that have the new world order rules for a society after a reset, including living in sustainable harmony with nature with a human population less than 500 million people. That's the one that always sticks out to people. But last year, I believe, was it last year? Some crazy person went and defaced them. Did they put them back up? I think they put them back up afterwards. They cleaned them up because there's a secret anonymous benefactor that pays to have this site repaired. And some people think it's connected with Ted Turner, right? Because Ted Turner also has his own rules for a new society.
Who is the CNN magnate or something, no?
Correct.
Media,
and Captain Planet. Ted Turner rules. What is it? Or the new.
Oh, he did Captain Planet?
Yeah, he did Captain Planet. 10 Principles, Georgia Guidestones.
And also here, another meme, someone just posted like how strange it is that you have 100 streaming services and you can't stream Captain Planet anywhere. What's up with that?
You can't?
Supposedly, apparently.
Captain
I'm not sure.
Planet Archive. Let's go to CaptainPlanetArchive.org. Go to archive.org and type in Captain Planet. Boom. Found
yes, that's not what I'm talking about.
Can you imagine not knowing to do that, though? Like, why would you?
And also, that's also just random posts I saw. Someone is suing Internet Archive and they won. So, yeah, download your favorite stuff, I guess.
Holy cow. It has, like, the background art. Like, wow, like even like the prototypical episodes. Yes, for those of you who didn't grow up during the thawing of the Cold War, this is the utopia that we dream of. This is Captain Planet. I love that show. Whoopi Goldberg. Say something nice about Whoopi Goldberg. Captain Planet. Now I know what to say.
Oh, I thought you were going to put me on the spot. I was like...
If you can't do it, I gave you an answer. All right?
Yeah, thank you. I'll remember that.
Yeah, I didn't have one last time I asked.
Okay, so we're going up now. We're up.
Well, we have a bunch of them open. Do you want to do the Irish civilization one? Okay, because Irish people are important. I have a theory that Irish people did everything, and then like alcoholism destroyed it. Right? That's the Seth MacFarlane solution to Irish history.
Yeah, that's also kind of Tessarian's theory, I guess. No, Michael Tessarian is a researcher that I looked at a lot, like 15 years ago or something, Now he's on unslaved.com, which I think he's still running, doing different interesting conversations on psychology, this and that. I think he's not exactly up to speed on the cosmology topic, which I also find so incredibly interesting that quite a few that I would consider OG, and as far as I can discern, really quote unquote independent researchers, their cognitive dissonance kicks in with the cosmology. And I don't exactly understand why, except for the usual explanations, because especially if they're already honed in, oh, I'm going to investigate this conspiracy and this and that, why they don't take a closer look at that one as well. It's just another thing, right?
Well, I think I get it though. If you get really narrow in an education, it makes you really aware of that thing. But also to do that a lot of the time, you have to at the cost of not a broader education. So they end up either very shallow in a number of fields or very deep in one thing, and then they have to have a friend who knows that thing for them. But that does have a problem because if everything's built on presuppositions of lies from the winners of the spoils of history, then yeah, you can't do that. You can't just take at face value the stories. You can't just believe what ISIS tells you about how the war went.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to get at. And so here I just basically a throwback reference that this guy did lots of interesting work. Also, spoiler, there will be a David Jung Jr. interview sometime in the future where he's going to talk more about that topic as well.
Oh, great.
And as usual, expect to be shocked and things to be turned up on their head. But it's yet to be recorded. But yeah, that's something we're going to look into more. So here I just wanted to point out anybody who likes interesting researchers, something worth checking out. Of course, now with all the newfound knowledge about all these histories and Egypt and so on, has to be taken probably with a mountain of salt. But these days, what hasn't, and anyhow, real natural salt with all the minerals is very healthy for you. So,
right.
Yeah. But he's like one of the OG researchers I found who was even talking about, the Bible and all of these things. I'd have to rewatch it to like be able to have a more revised version of it. But at least back then, it was one of the most interesting things to watch.
I talked to Michael in 2008. I haven't talked to him probably since like 2010. I'd like to reach out to him again. But at the time, I was really fascinated with his work, particularly in occult mysticism. Which,
I think me too around that time. I even wrote him in 2008 around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably reach out again. I don't know what's going on in his life at this point at all, but I know that he was really he had information about the Druids that only Jesuits I had known had ever heard before. So I found that to be very fascinating. And a lot of the time when people talk about Druids, they're romanticizing an idea, not necessarily aware of what the Druids were really like, or basing it on what 19th century romanticists thought of the Druids, which is also nothing to do with the Druids. So I think he's there's something about this. There's something about that boy. You know what I mean? He's cool.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I think also his family is kind of interesting. And the one other reference I want to give, just because we're on the cosmology topic, I heard from a friend, from another friend, but this would be trustworthy transmission, that individual had met even 1-2 decades ago some most likely Jesuits or other monks, maybe Benedictine, most likely Jesuits, and they claimed or talked to that individual and claimed to have seen or have been to quote unquote beyond the ice wall. There's not more information about this, but even just whatever monks, and who knows, maybe they just went into a simulator and thought they saw something. That's, of course, always the thing when even big and powerful people claim, oh, I know this or I saw that. You never know who they got MK Ultra'd by, right? But interesting reference.
Another
and also
guy,
there's...
I was going to say, because you brought up Michael Sarian is also Dr. David Neiman. David Neiman's fascinating. It's a tragedy that his life was cut short at like 90 years old. You know what I mean? I could see this guy living for 1,000 years. But he did so much work to uncover the truth about the Hyksos. I saw that was a major interest there. The Celts and the Hyksos, the idea of the redhead Ashkenazi Jews and the Hyksos. And there's something to that. There's something to this idea that the Georgians were perhaps the Hyksos. And he's said this before as well. And he's an amazing work showing this connection between Autonism and Abrahamic religion in a way that really Freud kind of looked at this with Osar stuff, but didn't go as far. And you can get all of the work that he's done at this point, and mainly as he was passing away, he just decided to record like a year worth of lectures for people. So these are the last lectures of his life. Highly recommended. Dr. David Neiman.
That may
How
have
about
been the most
ancient?
interesting aspect about the whole Michael Tessarian thing for me back then, at least, is something that comes back again now, actually, with the talks with David Jung Jr. and the whole 33rd degree. Is God inside the material universe, or is it something absolute? Because Michael Tessarian actually talks about the atonists and the ammonists. And what's so interesting is that I believe he claims that the atonists were the evil tyrants and the ammonists were the good ones. Whereas, for example, Armin Riese, who's a Swiss philosopher, he claims it's the other way around. So basically, the idea is the, let's say, one God religion pointing directly to source, is that the good thing or whatever, or good intention? Or is the multiplicity of ideologies the good or favorite thing? Whereas from an atonist point of view, or absolutist point of view, of lack of a better term, it would be that, of course, I don't want 100 different priests that then each sell you their own god and all of that. Yeah. So I found that an interesting distinction, and it seems to come back around now, especially if it's true that even in the higher echelons, people are debating or fighting over whether God is inside or outside, whatever we can perceive here. Which, if that really is a thing, and that is causing any degree of human misery or conflict, I'd be like, how retarded is this world if even people that have all the knowledge and technology and money can't settle a debate on that or come to some kind of agreement, then it's beneficial for
Have you
everyone.
seen the show Chaos with Jeff Goldblum on Netflix about the Greek gods being people?
No, I've only seen American Gods.
That's a good okay, good enough. I like Knowles, but I would recommend this show. There's some boring stuff in the black and white scene, so just skip that. There's like a kind of fourth wave feminist love story that's needlessly woven into this ancient brilliant thing, but otherwise it's worth watching. And Zeus, Jupiter, has killed his father Cronus, Saturn, and in the process, let me see if I can find the picture. Jupiter killing Saturn.
You're only gonna find some
gods? Anybody? This is horrible. Well, okay, I'm looking for a picture where he's like pulling his like flesh from his neck.
Yeah,
essentially.
there you have it on the right hand side. Saturn devouring his children.
Oh, thank you. Okay. There's another one though that's even cooler because
yeah, I think there is one even more gruesome one.
Yeah. So he does this to Hades first, which is why Hades is older than Jupiter. But what ends up happening is that after Jupiter gets out, Jupiter kills his father and he eats his father. And he gets a taste for life. And he realizes the only way to do that is to create more life, to eat it, to consume it. And so eventually you have all of these humans being born and dying, and it gets kind of exhausting to just kill and eat people. So he creates a door, a kind of a gate, and a river, and the lives are floating down the river into his mouth, which are the gate. And this is Hades' job for him. His older brother he puts in charge of eating life. And then they take the life and they consume it, and they convince people of all these different religious beliefs so that they'll continue to believe that they'll get to it's a good thing, right? You're gonna be consumed by the gods, and then there'll be the energy will be put in, recreated, it'll be put back into some new thing or whatever. I find that interesting. Plus this idea that Jupiterianism is
reminds me of the soul trap now that you put it like this whole idea, oh, my soul is gonna get trapped, don't go into the light.
No, this is interesting to me because I think that all religions are the same religion. And so the idea that Mormonism shows that Christianity is about Elohim, not just one God, but the family of gods, right? Asher is the wife. But where did that go? Because Christianity gets to a point where you have this very divorced father. Well, that's very similar to Jupiter, because Jupiter is constantly loving other people. His wife, his sister, is in love with his younger brother, who's in love with her. Neptune is in love with Hera. And so there's just this crazy unrequited love thing going on, and the gods end up in a situation. I mean, at this point, there's fate, So as long as you have fate, you can control things. But if the gods destroy fate, then we have free will because there's chaos, right? Without fates, there's chaos. So this is the reason why Jupiter's in charge, because all of the other gods use him to eat life. And if he doesn't have this system working, then they all suffer. But I think that means essentially we are talking about the same religion, and that's why Jupiter is essentially the way Christians look at God, as this sort of old man in the sky, because it is. It's a lot. I think it really is, and we're maybe even living.
I think
in
people would
close to that
usually
future.
associate Saturn with it, but if you say the story is reproduced again, then
So Saturn
maybe
is
Jupiter would be the most recent incarnation, which in my
Dionysus.
timeline now
Bacchus is. Bacchus is the son of
would
Jupiter.
fit, yeah.
So you go Saturn, Jupiter, Bacchus. And Bacchus is what is Bacchus's whole thing? Eating flesh consensually at parties, right? Everyone's loving kind of a lovey-dovey consensual cannibalism. Which I mean is but you have to see it as the metaphor for life, consumption of life, right? And the production of life. So it's all of a sudden you're no longer a slave to the gods in the way that you were under Jupiter. But even Jupiter, you're better than you were as Saturn. Saturn wouldn't even have wanted you to exist, but you would have been his son for that to be the case, right?
Yeah. New World Order family dynamics. What can I say?
It's pretty dark there. That's the thing, you know. You gotta be careful about the Mediterraneans. Okay, and then you had. We did the Irish thing, the rise of the Moors. Okay, this is important. We just talked about the Irish, the Celts. We looked at Egypt. Let's talk about the Berbers and the Moors.
Of course, you will not hear anything about the Berbers or the Moors here, because it's a Vice show. This is just about some petty criminals using that as a reason to claim that this is their ancestral homeland or whatever. Here you can see the nicely signed documents with thumbprint and all of that.
So they're like,
yeah.
Are they squatting on property and then saying that this
basically,
is the property because
yes.
Are they saying
but they are apparently no, but they are just apparently just serial criminals, and it's just interesting because instead of actually looking at you know, all this real history, I mean, I don't think I've watched all of it, so maybe they go into it a little bit, but instead of being like, oh, you know, how much can we learn from this and so on, it's mainly pointed out, or firstly pointed out, as this squatter guy thing. Maybe here they go into it a bit more, but I think I haven't seen the whole video, so maybe they actually say a little bit. But
the Moors got to America at some point before.
Yeah,
Columbus.
but here
Is that their argument?
Okay. I guess I'm just realizing I haven't seen all of it, but it seems here, of course, they're conflating it with the whole, you know, sovereign citizen movement, this and that. Yeah.
Well, there was a thing at one point where some Afro-Tartarians, right? That was a thing in the Northeast coast, and they were hostile takeover, kidnapping people, trying to say that they were Tartarians, natives, and that they were the real indigenous Indians, and they were trying to kick natives off of reservations to take their land, and it ended up having a bunch of people arrested. And this was a major reason they said that Tartaria should be lumped in with the fake news stuff, because there was this group on the internet that thought that they were like the Black Tartarians of Connecticut.
Yes, so that was my first inkling when I saw this, that this is the real purpose behind such a kind of expose. Oh, here, elements of Islamic beliefs. Now we're getting somewhere. Sovereign criminal tactics, mortgage schemes. Yeah, so, you know, don't really investigate your real history, but just go crazy because there's a few unhinged individuals that, you know, try to use this for their own ends. I mean, by this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if some of those then turn out to be agents, because that's, of course, a highly effective tactic in terms of PR. Just as with this whole final experiment I had mentioned earlier. Recently, I was talking about this and I was wondering, all right, assuming, again, simply brief recap, it is about whether or not there's a 24-hour sun at a particular position in Antarctica, but this is an outer position because it's an official camp, right? And then some people claiming that whether or not the sun does something during that time, this would somehow decide the shape of the Earth, which of course is a false dichotomy and not the way to go about it. And it seems here, similarly, attention just should be diverted into something that has nothing to do with the actual topic. Yeah.
Yeah, but also it seems useful because if you take the words and you redefine them, then you can keep your state safe from that ideology accidentally exposing the truth. You know, like, oh, well, we have a new definition for more. We have a new definition for Islam.
Exactly. We have a new definition of Tartaria or whatever.
This is
and,
Jesus. He was a pacifist
anyone
and white.
could.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah. Do you ever just go like, oh, Black Jesus, because you want the real one to hear you? Anyway, Jack Parsons.
I mean, by now, honestly, can we be sure that Jesus didn't have red hair and so on? Or, well, anyways.
That's Genghis Khan, bro. Come on. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So here, all I wanted to do, of course, this is our favorite guy with Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I just wanted to point out that his name, he was born as Marvel.
Jesus comes off as a black guy, doesn't he? Doesn't Jesus come off as a black guy? Like he's kind of soft spoken. He doesn't want to like upset a bunch of people that are like gonna kill him. He's constantly like being suppressed by the state. He has nice clothing, right? He's not too flashy, but he's got like a nice one piece. I think a lot of things about Jesus. He doesn't really come off as like a frail, like neurotic white guy. He doesn't really, you know what I mean? I don't see that.
Well, he definitely he does not come across as a 22nd century soy infused individual. No, but what I'm pretty sure is anyone who wants to incarnate the most positive qualities of whatever we know about his story can certainly do that regardless of their skin color. So
that's true. Maybe.
Or regardless of Jesus' skin color as well.
Except for people from Luxembourg, maybe. No, I think they're cool too. Okay, Jack Parsons. Let's do it. He's a cool guy. He's a rocket designer.
Yeah, there's too much to say about him. He's a great occultist. Everyone, yeah. It's even here on the front page.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how could it not be?
And that's what also trips me up.
Backstory in 30 seconds is that Jack Parsons was super into the occult, was practicing black magic. He realized that Solomon was using magic in order to visit illusionary spaces and illuminary realms. Figured space had something to do with that. Also learned about rocketry. As you know, black powder for rocketry was originally invented in the search for the elixir for eternal life. So the search for eternal life is directly associated with alchemy and with rockets and with the occult and with talking to spirits. So he was really interested in talking to spirits. He became friends with Aleister Crowley as a Thelema member of the church. And he also designed rockets, including eventually the JPL Propulsion Laboratory got acquired by Lockheed and then Lockheed Martin. Today, all of the jets that exist are using a fuselage, solid-state, pentacle, fuel air intake system designed by Jack Parsons.
You're serious?
In the 30s. Yeah, still. So, based Parsons. That's where we're at with that. And if it weren't for Jack Parsons, I don't know if I would be here, because my grandfather was a rocket engineer, right? Like, it's all Jack Parsons. Without him, there wouldn't even have been... I mean, the American rocket industry only exists because Jack Parsons was writing letters and corresponding with another occultist from Germany, Maximilian Werner von Braun, who was an SS paperclip scientist eventually because of this. If it weren't for that conversation, I wonder if he would have been brought over and if we would have had all of these rockets and everything like that. But because this was happening, and it was clear to the United States government that the Germans were so ahead in rocketry and that this guy knew about it, they had to get into rocketry. It's the only reason America got into rocketry was because he was talking to Werner von Braun. So, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
So I just wanted to point out that his name was Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel Whiteside. That's his dad's name. Yeah.
And of course, you know, the comics company, Marvel, right? They must have been founded later than that, yeah. So just in terms of, how do you call it?
The 60s, yeah.
Illusory expeditions to luminaries, or how did you say it? Yeah, you said it in such a nice way. Illusory
realms, luminary realms, illusory spaces.
Yeah, something like that.
Illusionary spaces of luminary realms.
Here we go.
Yeah.
here we go. I think
Yeah, that wasn't
that's a good
rehearsed.
title.
That's just what it is, man. But yeah, also let's talk about some crackheads. The Lore Lodge. So here's a group of kids with some hands in their pockets, you know? There's an ancient
So
brotherhood
the
of
only
men.
the
That
only
secret
reason I'm pulling
brotherhood
this out is
of men.
because I know you did an interview with them, and I was not exactly happy. They were not as nice to you as I would have liked them to be.
I thought it
And
was
here,
okay up
basically,
until like they clearly couldn't handle it, lost, and didn't want to do it again. They were like in the conversation. It was like, okay, it looks like we're gonna talk about this more, and you can look into it more. And they asked to do that, and then afterwards, instead, they made this sort of Tartaria is nonsense video, which is like, okay, you guys are kind of sad. That's all I can say. It's kind of, it was a disappointment that you didn't try harder. You know, not angry,
and
just disappointed.
so people can check this out. And the other thing, and we don't have to go too deeply into this, but if you look at their channel, I want to know how organic this growth can be achieved. I mean, I'm wondering this with so many channels, to be honest. But
Yeah, there's definitely something weird about that one, for sure.
yeah. So anyhow, they don't seem to have the strongest faculties necessarily. But anyways, I don't want to harp on them. I just wanted to point it out. Anyone wants to see a logical
I just
analysis,
wonder
this
about
is
that's the
about
thing
cosmology.
that's the thing that's like I thought that at first, but now I wonder like is that all it is, or is there, because I mean when you're a hypnotic reactionary, there's something beyond.
Oh,
It
that's
could
this
be
nice term you use in your documentary. Yes, everyone go
it could
watch
be
Exertus History Revised. Go on.
Yeah, or the German version, which is even cooler. But yeah, if you are conscious of it, it's different. If you're subconsciously afraid of something changing your narrative, which is what it kind of looks like, but if you're conscious of it because you really feel like your job is to promote this narrative for the betterment of that, you're basically like the people saying that you should get vaccinated whether or not it's good for you, just for the benefit of society. And it's really scary. Conscious uh, deception is far scarier. So I don't know. I'm not saying that's what it is, but didn't feel super ingenuous. It felt rather disingenuous.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Levels
Meanwhile,
and
Google
levels.
patents on full body teleportation systems by John
So
Sinclair. Oh yeah.
I think I brought this up before, and also this John St. Clair is like, I want to meet, like, who is this? This is most likely just like some kind of a agent name or something. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'd like to
well,
see his interview.
so Sinclair Da Vinci Code. The Sinclair is supposed to be, the Rosslyn Chapel. The idea that Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene married and had children, and that their descendants are the Sinclair line, right? So that could be a thing right there, if there was a reasonable coincidence for the John Sinclair character. But he has a lot of patents, including like
Yeah,
spaceships
and a
and
lot
stuff.
of them that are very, yeah, very interesting. And also a lot with magnetics and so on. And whether these work exactly as described or not, but it's just again so obviously a farce how these topics are completely blacked out in the mainstream. And then if you ever hear about it, it's in a derogatory fashion, or just go watch some science fiction. But let's not actually investigate. And even here, I recently heard, and we're gonna investigate this further, that supposedly also in Austria, someone even commented about this on my channel, so it's public information apparently, because I had only recently heard this again. There's all these caverns in Austria, right? And there's one guy who's done some investigation by the name of Dr. Heinrich Kusch. We showed him before, is Kusch Unterwelten, and for many years he's been given presentations, this and that. And also apparently at one point he invited a physics professor by the name of Zeilinger, who maybe even won the Nobel Laureate Prize or something. He's like pretty high up because he did some quantum cryptography work mainly, or at least that's the practical application. And anyhow, he was explaining to him and said, look, we have these caverns here. And even apparently, supposedly, very interestingly, the former owner who now died of Red Bull, which is one of the biggest companies in Austria.
Oh, I didn't know that. The Austrian Red Bull guy died? I didn't know that.
Yes, only quite recently. But apparently he assisted in having a surveying of Austria and finding all these caverns. And what they looked up then is they were like, oh, it's very strange. All these caverns seem to be connected with like I guess pretty thick vein of quartz.
Bummer. I would have
And it
liked to know this
actually,
guy.
yeah. And it actually appears to be as if this connection occurs between many of them. And the speculation basically is, and from what I heard, Zeilinger at least said, this quantum physics professor, that he can well imagine it, if this could have been some sort of a, if I want to say, low-key communication system, or even up to some sort of, for lack of a better term, teleportation system, which of course, yeah, would be incredible.
Kind of base.
Incredibly
Yeah, so
amazing.
let's read the let me find it where I put that there, the Google patent. Let's read the patent breakdown real quick, the brief summary. So this invention is a system that teleports a human being through hyperspace from one location to another using pulsed gravitational wave traveling through hyperspace.
Again, gravitational waves, like what we brought up last time with the gravitational wave communication, GCOM, where the guy in Hartmut Müller from Germany was calling Moscow and then got chased off to Brazil and imprisoned. So again, we're at gravitational wave, longitudinal wave, and that's also the whole Rife idea. That's the frequency healing idea. And that's a subject that's definitely completely blocked out of mainstream. Please go ahead.
It took a number
Sorry
of
for the interlude.
No, it's all right. That was good. I'm going to read a couple more parts probably. It took a number of days in order to understand the sequence of events. The explanation involves knowledge of a wide range of subjects such as gravitational physics, hyperspace physics, wormhole electromagnetic theory, and experimentation, quantum physics, and the nature of the human energy field, right? So that's back to their animal magnetism and mesmer. And here's the breakdown. The basis for this invention is an event referring to Figure 1 occurring on May 2nd, 2004, in which the inventor, he personally
I
experienced
forgot I even read this before. Please read the sentence
teleportation.
again. That's so crazy.
In which the inventor, he personally experienced a full body teleportation while walking to the bus stop along a road that runs perpendicular to a nearby commercial airport runway where planes are landing. This is a wide iron grating for water drainage that crosses the road at the center of the bus stop. So interesting, this idea that there's a plane area, right
Iron
by this
grating,
portal.
water, alloys.
A portal. The grating width is such that one has to make a concerted effort to jump across it in order to get from one side to the other, approximately 50 meters from iron grating. He felt a vertical wave F, similar to a flag waving in a breeze, traveling down the street towards the bus stop. The wave velocity was about 1 meter per second, which is slightly faster than his walking speed. In the next instance, he, G, found himself down the street near the corner of the next block. Realizing that he had passed the bus stop, he turned around to see the iron grating approximately 50 meters up the street in back of him. Because there was no recollection of having jumped across the iron grating nor having passed the bus stop's yellow marker line, he realized he must have been transported a distance of 100 meters while moving along with a traveling wave. It was obvious that the wave was pulsed because the front edge overtook the inventor, moving with him momentarily, and then the back edge of the wave left him as it moved on down the street. While contemplating this sequence of events, he then looked up and saw, in a span of a few seconds, a twin turboprop plane, C, in the distance, crossing above the road while making a shallow descent in order to land in the airport. Okay? So this is kind of, and then we'll go look at the pictures of it for a second. But this is sort of, he was walking here as the plane passes and he goes through the grating. He jumps some 100 meters. That's the story here, right? And then this is his understanding of the wave. Figure 3. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
So basically, people have been talking about underground super high-speed maglev trains, or we just have these quartz teleportation lines.
Right. Yeah. I find it really interesting also. Have you seen the movie The Fly?
No.
There's a great movie with Jeff Goldblum. It's going to be a Jeff Goldblum night. Oh my God. It's a movie where an inventor makes a machine for teleportation. The only problem is a fly gets into the machine with the inventor. And so the DNA is mixed together, and he's got a little bit of fly in him.
Oh no, please.
You're gonna have to watch this movie. I'm gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna download it tonight. Oh, I love this movie. I got problems. The Fly.
Reading Kafka Transform Metamorphosis was enough for me, where the guy turns into a huge beetle and then sits in front.
Yeah, no. If you're into
the
if
room.
you're if that's like
I mean, I like fantasy, but not when I read this in
You
school.
don't
It was
have
like,
a
oh, reading
Kafka
something
pet?
with
Oh.
fantasy. Then I was like, what crazy? What is this? You know?
Well, you know, like that's actually ironic because it's not really about a bug. It's really about being a goyim, because you become an unclean thing. And so it's this idea of he's normally following the law, and all of a sudden here's like a situation where we're living in a world where all things are permitted and the law is broken. It's actually kind of even like a rebuttal to a Spinozan world. But I like Kafka. But I definitely like The Fly, and I would recommend it.
Can you explain it further? How it is a rebuttal for anyone who's not?
So if there are no laws, all things are permitted, right? And if all things are permitted, then there's no more beauty. And essentially, you end up in this situation where if there's no more beauty, there's actually nothing ugly about it anymore. And then you're left to your own devices and your freedom, right? Because really, like, his main concern is that he's not able to go to work. He's not able to do what he's supposed to do, right? And he's going to be embarrassing because he doesn't fit in with the society. But nobody does at that point. That's kind of the point. Like, everyone has become the unclean beast, the unclean pest.
Thank you for refreshing the interpretation. I most likely learned in high school, but completely forgot. I just thought back to that image and was like, you know, like. But yeah.
It's good. What about the social security trust fund?
So here, all I want to point out, a friend actually pointed this out to me. This is the last link for today. Yeah, everyone, that's your social security. And you can go down on that page. I'll see if I find it, because it's quite easy. So security, because it's called social security. And either there's a complete misunderstanding, or you just scroll down a little bit on that wiki page.
Oh.
And apparently, supposedly, like, all the governments are kind of paying into this. I haven't researched the background yet, but this may well be a worldwide system, or at least in the West, where people actually are paying taxes and, you know, receiving proper pensions and everything. You're already much too far. It's the third paragraph. And you can read that if you like.
This one here?
Yes.
Excess funds are used by the government for non-Social Security purposes, creating an obligation to the Social Security Administration and thus program recipients. However, Congress could cut these obligations by altering the law. Trust fund obligations are considered intragovernmental debt, a component of the debt or national debt. As of December 2022, estimated the intragovernmental debt was $6.18 trillion of the $31.4 trillion national debt. Of the $6.18 trillion, $2.7 trillion is obligation to the Social Security Administration.
So whatever here really happens in the background, I just find it very interesting that it literally says excess funds are used by the government for non-Social Security purposes.
So theoretically, people don't need Social Security unless they're old. And a lot of the time, we actually have a pretty weird racial policy that Social Security doesn't really incur for people until a lot of persons of color start to pass away, because there's a lower life expectancy for persons of color, and so they end up not getting the benefits of Social Security that they deserve as often. And you know,
are you telling me Social Security is racist?
I mean, I think in general, bureaucratic uniformity can disparage persons with uniqueness of any kind, right? And if there's large groups of uniqueness, that becomes beyond uniqueness. That becomes a class, and in a class, in a bureaucratic, social governmental system, a class will either be discriminated against for receiving or for by not receiving social services. So there's really no way out of it. The state creates discrimination. That is what it is, right? A state is both the producer of discrimination and the exploiter of the migratory nation by forcing debt payment to bank, right? But so with Social Security, there is an investment then, because there's so much money. You have to imagine that Porsche, for instance, makes, I think, 20 to 30 to 100 times more money off their investments a year than they do off selling cars, right? But there was some capital. The cars helped. And this is the same with Social Security. You take that money and you invest it, and you can see when they started to invest it in the commodities markets and all sorts of things in the late 80s, how it just took off. It's just crazy how much money Social Security made, right? In terms of total assets. The total income barely rose, but the total assets incredible, right? So we have amazing.
But is this inflation adjusted?
This is inflation adjusted. No, I don't know if it's inflation adjusted, but still the idea of total assets being that's a good point. But I don't think so. I think that the idea that Social Security is actually valuable, this is why.
I mean, it still could have been risen to that extent, but then, I mean, the main issue, of course, being I talked about this with a friend, and we said how ridiculous is it. I'm not sure in America how many, if you have a regular position at, I want to say McDonald's or whatever, how many monthly payments do you get? I mean, there should be 12 months, but you get 12 payments or more than that in America?
I feel like the investment thing is logical because by turning that amount of money into something that they can do more with, we've reached that point where Andrew Yang and Forward Party could start talking about UBI. You know, we could talk about how we could invert the debt system. There's really no reason to tax people for Social Security. Taxation is literally just to keep sustainable wealth from occurring. You don't want anyone to accidentally have enough money to have a farm and then just be sustainable. So you have to make sure that you keep taxing people. That's the only reason. They don't really need that money because only an idiot doesn't know how to use money. These are very clever people. They can take a small amount of money and turn it into a lot of money, right? So investments, they should be in a circumstance where the government's making so much money, it's paying the people who are members of it. Why isn't that happening? Why do we live in a satanic inversion? I don't know.
That's the question. So last thing I wanted to point out is that how should I say, how people are deliberately being held in like a non-independent and sovereign state. You pointed out some of the factors. In Austria, even now, if you have a regular job, actually you receive 14 payments, which I guess may sound nice to an American. So you receive the same amount of money, more or less, maybe even more for the 2 extra payments. But it's so funny because it's almost like a, not even high school psychology or something, what the government entrusts you with, because it's literally like, oh, we don't really believe that you can properly manage your own money. Maybe you can manage month to month, but you most definitely cannot manage to save up enough for your holidays or whatever you would want to do. So instead of just paying everything out evenly, we're going to give you extra money for vacation and for Christmas. So I just think it's such a infantilization of the human condition in regards to, you know, the ability of financial planning. Of
Which
course,
would make you want to like educate and work in that state. You'd be like, oh well, actually, there's a better benefit if I move to Brazil. It's, you know, instead of saying, oh, they have less taxes there, you'd be like, oh, they have more benefits there, and so I'll move. And so states would compete to have, like Nigeria or something. We'll give you a UBI to live in Nigeria. You're gonna have Danish people moving to Nigeria. You're gonna have, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy the way that we've developed this system, because the only states that are benefiting from it are the ones that are able to collect from all the other states. So sure, the United States is doing all right, you know, by doing that, but these smaller countries that are trapped in these international banking debt and are constantly, this is really a dangerous situation.
That's the other question. How much
places to live?
How much has this increase in assets directly or indirectly been caused by exploitation of anyone who's not in the West? That's of course always the open question.
Well, God, like I mean, you know, I had an East German exchange student, so I've been thinking about how in the 90s it was so awesome to live in California because we had all of the resources that the Soviet Union had been stolen. Think about it. Like you have an entire, like that's what happened. Half of the world was shut down. It was like World War II again after the war, where Americans could just go buy like.
And I even saw an image from like even 1990 or something. You mentioned Dresden, and this was an image first from like just after the war, completely destroyed, and then still in 1990, almost I think still destroyed because it was in East Germany,
right.
And the communists didn't care about properly cleaning up even decades later, apparently.
I think it's useful if you want to culturally erase something to wait a generation, because if you were to just rebuild it right away, then the old people that survived, some of them, might have been able to hold on to that history and share that with their children. So you really need to salt the earth. You can't just build Dresden again right away. And I think it's a tragedy, but that is what Europe is today. You can see it from the postmodern art, these weird lock bridges and these strange square pieces of art that they place all over Europe now. These weird things that are to replace, the Prussian statues or like the cannons and things that used to be in these parks. I got two things I wanted to cover really quickly. You had one last link you forgot. The Dictionary of the Khazars.
Oh yeah, there's nothing I can mention about it. I just got the reference and I was like, okay, something to check out more. So
it looks fascinating. It's written originally in Serbian by Milorad Pavic, and even as a Croat, you gotta be interested in Pavic. He's a pretty fascinating novelist. And yeah, it was Yugoslavia. It was another time, but it talks about the Khazars, the Judeo 9th century Khazar connection, and I think some people. For a long time, I think this was basically banned. Like in the West, people were offended by this idea. Now that we have Ancestry.com, 23andMe, and it's proven. Although I would say even at this point with linguistics and culture, it's obviously proven. But it's impossible to deny at this point. So I would push this hard. I would definitely push Dictionary of the Khazars. Get this book. It's translated in English.
The only thing to correct for, if I can now properly infer what I know from David, is that this could have been a story much closer to today and not so far removed. With the whole Palestine, Polish time, this is what it reminds me of.
Point that out, this idea of the 7th century and the 18th century, or the 8th century and the 17th century connection there with the flamenco timeline. So the fact that it's talking about how things were right before, realistically, you have a simultaneous Arab world existing next to a Christian world, whatever that means, because they're both pretty much the same world up until they decide to ideologically divide themselves more. So it's pretty important. But yeah, also he talks about Samuel Cohen, the Croatian Jew from the 17th century, which is cool. I would recommend that. Okay, also, then one movie for you all to see. 3 Wishes for Cinderella. Have you seen this one?
No.
Joint East German and Czech movie, Czechoslovakian movie made by the Soviet Union. Beautiful fairy tale. It's amazing. I would highly recommend it. Very beautiful. Kind of reminds me of like Romeo and Juliet at Christmas time in the snow. You can get it free on YouTube. One of the things that's interesting is they shot it in Czech and in Germany, Czech and German at the same time. So you can watch it in Czech or watch it in German, or both. I think it's also available in English, but why would you do that to yourself? So check out this amazing movie. Classic Soviet East German Czech film. It's beautiful. It has very Tartarian vibes,
Oh yeah. I see the patterns.
Okay. Love you, bro. Let's go to Commency.at so everyone can figure out where to get your links. If you guys go to Synchronicity, look at right here. We're going to find the index, I think it's called, Neuropa, and then click on Neuropa. What is this right now? Neuropa right there.
No, it's a log, but also here you have it. Yes.
Yeah, it worked. Cool. So you can get to, and then September 17th is today's date. You can find all of the links that we looked at and go over them yourself. Check them out. I hope you had a good time. We'll see you later tonight for Sync Tank.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy.
Good to see you.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.